This week, after a bunch of progress inside the boat, volunteers descend on Arabella's boathouse for the grueling task of longboarding the fair curves into the hull. And if you're watching this video the same day it comes out, Friday the 19th of May, today is the last day to order your official launch t-shirt so that it arrives to you before launch on June 17th. Maritime artist and author Jan Atkins pays tribute to Steve and Arabella, saying goodbye to the farm and moving on to the next chapter. There will be more opportunities to add this shirt to your collection, but if you want it for launch day, go to the video description and follow the links to order one now. The days of working in the boathouse are nearly over, and in a few short weeks, Arabella will be rolling down the road toward the coast. So you can imagine, underneath the roof, there's been quite a lot going on. For a couple of weeks, Arabella has been kept wet and surrounded by humidity as Steve and crew try to swell the planks as much as possible. A time-lapse was set up here on one of the larger gaps, which of course didn't close up as much as other places that weren't on camera. Inside the boat, Satchel got closer to having the entire power system up and running.
We're almost at the get a laptop page.
The whole goal of this test was to light off or power on the multiplus, the inverter charger. And why that's not as simple as just pressing the button is because it has a big capacitor bank in it. And when you give power to capacitors, they draw basically unlimited current until they're charged. If we just close this switch, when the contacts get close, the current will arc, and if you do that enough times, this contact will weld together, and the switch will stop functioning. So to avoid that, we've got these two 25-watt, 12-ohm resistors in series on a very similar switch, but one that has the combined battery function. So when I turn this to on, what it's going to do is close the circuit between the positives, the one coming from the battery and the one going to the multiplus, but with the resistors in the middle of that circuit. And the resistors are going to reduce the current draw, so the arc, we don't get the arc, we don't weld the contact, and we don't draw too much current and trip off the battery management system in the batteries. So here goes. One second. Power. That's good. Nothing happened.
Where's the kaboom? That's supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Oh. Green lights!
Hey!
Look at that, folks.
Now we need our 120 plug.
We do. We need a lot of things to test that.
You might notice in the background of some shots that the fine folks at Keenan Filters came by to help get the fuel filter installed here behind the companionway steps. Outside, Steve and Scott went through the wood piles looking for material to finish out the pilot berth and workbench areas.
And then I was thinking that this thinner mahogany can be the ceiling by the bunk in the forepeak. Because that really, you're not going to walk on that. We're going to put a foam pad on it for the most part. And then you're just going to cuddle with it.
And when not following everyone around to try to get shots of everything that's getting done all over the place, Aiden's been chipping away at his own projects as well.
Okay, so today I need to clean up these front port lights and make some new faceplates for them because the fit of these factory ones is pretty awful, and I'll show you. Barely even lines up with the corner. So we're gonna make some fresh ones. I have this sheet of bronze here.
To seal the wood on the inside of these bolt holes, Aiden filled them with Thixo epoxy. Once dry, he'll drill them out again before adding the bolts. And this will keep any water that does get through from creating rot spots around the port lights. And inside the boat, Aiden's been working on another big job of hiding all of the wires from the lighting and fans that you've seen hanging all over the place as they've gotten installed.
Okay, so I'm about getting to the end of the road, making all of these locust chases to hide all of our wires for lighting. All sorts of different shapes to fit all the weird curves in the boat, and reliefs for wires to exit. George has a fair amount already getting varnished, but I'm going to sand these up and pass them along to him. I also want to a quick shout out to RZ Masks for sending us these masks. They've been super useful, so thank you, RZ. So it was all hands on deck to get our cockpit back outside so that I could put the dead eyes and the deck prisms that go on the other 3 sides. And we also have 2 scupper drains in the floor, and that should finish us off for the cockpit. Throw a layer of non-skid on the other side, and once we drop the engine, we'll be able to put this in, so it'll be very nice. So this morning Kyle is fitting the blocks for all the through holes, which you have meticulously shaped to the hull.
Yep. This is the curviest one, at least.
Yeah.
The others are a little bit less curvy. We'll get the Seacock valve mated to it. This one in particular is for engine coolant inlet. And it'll go live down in here.
Very nice.
Yep. And this guy's job is to reinforce the hull because we're putting a sizable hole in it through this through hole. It's also to give this valve something to mate to that's strong. The ABYC code basically says that you want this to be able to survive 500 pounds of force on whatever the most cantilevered point is.
Yeah.
And this should do that pretty easily.
Nice. Oh, it's so nice with this skylight open.
It is really nice. I'm really looking forward to just being able to stand here and kind of look up at the sails and see the wind direction, clouds racing by, maybe a little stargazing at night. It could be really nice.
Also, I think there's an elephant in the room behind you with that planter.
Oh yeah. This thing is really cool.
Yeah, our friend Jeff made this.
It's got a copper intersection to be watertight, and then stained glass on the outside. We're gonna put some grow lights, and we're gonna grow herbs right here. Yeah, this week in electrical. The first thing I did was wire up these USB ports. The nav station, the saloon table, and then forward berth all have kind of fixed charging setups. These lights, whenever this is on, the lights are on, which is nice because it tells you you've got power here. And if you didn't want them to be on, you got an indication. Because while these are LEDs, they still do kind of drain power when there's nothing plugged in.
Yeah.
And this side has the cool USB-C, which also glows. And all the wiring for these,
So that one just turned off.
it's got a switch.
Oh,
Yeah.
fancy.
Yeah, you know, you can be charging at night with the power still on, but without it glowing.
That is
You don't
nice.
want that to keep you up.
All the wiring for each of these USB ports is hidden in this little box, which is removable. Just pressure fit into place. It's all on a bus bar. I realized after I did it, I probably should have used Wago. Would have made it a lot simpler, a lot quicker. It took longer than I'm happy to admit. I'm also getting started on the AC panel, which is really nicely backlit right now. Yeah, so this is the AC shore power panel. Power comes in from the receptacle and then goes to this breaker. And when you turn this on, you energize the shore power transformer. Shore power transformer feeds the multi-plus inverter, which then can select the source. So it can either be running off of shore power or batteries inverted to produce AC, or a combination, which then feeds the distribution panel. And we only have 2 AC loads on here. The first one is the hot water heater, and the second is this receptacle that I'm currently installing. That's pretty much the whole AC system.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Keep it simple. This is nice because you want to run a power tool where you're going to have the current, you know, we've got 15 amps.
Yeah.
So that'll run. It's GFCI, you know, protected outlet. The other big progress this week was getting the inverter up and running. And that's a pretty nice thing because now I'm able to charge all of the SOK batteries, get them up to the same voltage, and then connect them together and have the full battery system together. Currently I'm charging at 50 amps, which is pretty sizable, and that's just one battery. Yeah. And it's pretty cool. You can see on the Victron system what's happening, right? This is the current flow from shore through the inverter charger to the battery. Allows us to easily monitor the battery voltage, power flow, all that jazz. So yeah, this Victron stuff's working really great so far. And they didn't even give us anything for free.
Very nice.
So they should.
Check out this beauty. This is Arabella's trash can, which is going to live in the galley. And underneath this epoxy paint lives the only plywood in all of Arabella. 1/4-inch plywood made into a trash can. It's kind of telling, really, but it looks good.
With a small window before needing to get ready for the longboarding party the next day, Aiden did a bit more for the front port lights. He was trimming these bolts down to size when he realized he wasn't as alone as he thought he was out in the garage.
I'm being followed by a bird right now. Where are you going, buddy?
Welcome to the Arabella Wildlife Channel. The preferred habitat of the brown Warpington. As you can see, Mama has just brought her babies a fresh worm. Okay, confirmed. There are lots of birds in here.
Aaron and Aiden prepped the longboards for the following day, making 7 for each grade of sandpaper, starting at 40 grit and up to 80 for the waterline and below, and up to 220 grit for the topsides.
The Arabella Woodyard Mahogany, $2 a pound. Cherry, $2 a pound. Ash, hickory, oak. All for sale. And the longboards are ready. They're glued up. You hit the middle rope mark.
With the big group coming the next day, Steve's plan to keep an eye on what had and hadn't been sanded enough was to simply cover the hull in children's sidewalk chalk and remove material until it was gone.
This looks so ridiculous.
The longboard party starts with arts and crafts. There's nothing like art in the morning. Morning, Jeff.
Morning, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Do you remember how many of each there were? There's 7 of each.
7 of each? Okay.
Yeah.
That look was amazing.
It's actually, the 80 grit is taking stuff off.
Okay, good. Good.
I'll give Annie a heads up, maybe it's worth distributing
Yeah.
80. The rainbow.
It looks nice with all the chalk on it. I like it. Okay, so we just got all the chalk off from the first round and we are re-chalking. Round 2, baby.
longboarding today. And right now I'm checking for fairness between planks. When this whole process started, if you've been watching the videos week to week, these edges though everything's sitting really nice on the frames behind them, these edges weren't necessarily a fair curve between one another. This is all becoming one fair curved surface, fairly curved surface. By that I mean that, like, when I strike this batten, I'm seeing little to no space along these edges. If I had checked this a couple weeks, you wouldn't even be able to see a fair curve between all of this. So what we did was we took these long boards, which move similarly to this batten, and can move along this curve. Instead of coming at it with a tool in one area, even if we move as briskly as we can, we're still gonna end up with low and high spots. We're still gonna sit a little long somewhere, maybe dish out a curve. What we've done now is we've both removed with 40 grit sandpaper on longboards. And by we, I mean these intrepid volunteers who've done an amazing job today. Removed all of the extra materials so that we have fair curves. And what I'm checking for is, like, are we ready to start using progressively lighter grits of sandpaper to move on to getting all of the sandpaper marks now out of this hull and get it fair for sanding. So what we're looking to do is on the top sides probably get it down eventually to 220 for painting with topside paint. And for the below the waterline area, we'll probably be looking to do just to 80 grit, because both the primer and most bottom paints really like an 80 grit surface to grip onto, and that's how it stays on. So I'm just moving along now and letting people know, can we graduate to these lighter sandpapers? And it's looking pretty darn good. I'm very impressed. The purpose of the party is to try to make sure that our friends Aiden, Scott, me, none of us have to spend, let's say, the better part of a week or two doing this work. By having 6 people on each side of the hull or more, we've been able to cut this work down to possibly 1 weekend's worth of work, plus maybe a little bit more. You can't go wrong with more sanding. Boat building is sanding, and then, then more sanding, and so. Okay, here's a really good example of a spot where we're gonna have to do a little bit of work. I'm just gonna circle kind of like this whole area. So basically what I'm seeing here is that when I go to strike this batten, I have a lot of extra material on either side here, and it's just not laying down here. So I don't know what happened here. I don't know, it's probably because this is softer. Maybe somebody wasn't quite, this is a hard reach, like it's right in front of someone's body. But I have to push the batten down in order to have it. And I mean, yes, this is a lighter batten, but also anywhere else I sort of like come around this curve, it seems to lay down a little better. But for some reason in this area, it's really hard to get it to, yeah, I've got a lot of extra stuff going on. So I'm gonna have to like remove, and that's what the longboards are for, actually, right? So I want the longboard to sit along this area and be removing material on either side of this low spot. It's the whole purpose of the longer tool.
You're very pink.
Right?
It's a good look.
Thank you.
He's so great. Everybody here today is amazing, and I'm so grateful.
We can pull the ones off of there.
Jeff, we can pull the ones off of this one.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just squished my finger in there. It is horrendous. Oh, here, the block is good to the outside. Sasha, what happened this weekend?
I may have gotten a ride from the United States government, aka the Coast Guard Division.
What happened?
I was wing foiling to Block Island and back, and it was about a 6-foot significant wave height, breaking at the tops, 20 to 30 knots of wind. And the friend that I brought with me, ran out of energy in those conditions. And he couldn't get back up on his foil, so we were out 5 miles offshore and unable to move. And it started getting cold, so we called for assistance, and the Point Judith Coast Guard Station had a boat on scene within 30 minutes, and they picked us up and brought us back.
Nice.
Very grateful.
Little boat, little taxi, little ocean taxi.
Yep. And then they get back, and I was like, "Are you gonna admonish us for our behavior?" And they were like, "Not in front of you." And then they asked for our names and addresses for their records, and they sent us home.
Wonderful.
They actually asked if we were gonna try again. And I was like, "You just rescued me. Is that an appropriate question?" She was like, "I think you should try again." I was like, "Is that your plan?" I'm gonna try again for sure. Now that you said it's okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, the lesson learned. There's a lot of lessons learned. But number one is call for the rescue.
Yeah.
They're there to help. They were not. They were very supportive. Like they didn't make us feel bad about needing help.
Nice. Do you like tell them when you're going out next time?
In advance. Pon 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 pon. Point you to the Coast Guard Station.
I'll be there.
Vessel in not distress yet, but likely distress later. Yeah, maybe I'll just swing by the office.
Yeah.
Drop a note.
Yo, I'm going out.
Carry your VHF radio. Extremely useful.
Yeah.
It was cool. They texted my phone with a link, and I could click on it and share my live location with the Coast Guard.
Oh, nice.
So they got right to us.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Coast Guard.
Thank you. Like the Coast Guard boat, which is it's a 45-foot response boat medium,
Yeah.
built in Louisiana by some guys that I know. It was pretty cool to see the inside.
Nice.
We were just ripping through the waves, like literally leaving just chaos in our way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to go back and try again.
You do. You do. You do.
Probably this weekend.
All right.